Well, hello, everybody. My name is Michael McCormick, and you are listening to the Superintendent Hot Seat, where bold superintendent leaders share the real stories behind their most difficult challenges and decisions as they work to improve student safety, wellness, and attendance in a system that's not yet fully prepared to support those entering our schools. Today, it is a real honor to have Superintendent of Highline Schools. Man, it is wonderful to see you today, Dr. Ivan Duran. Welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me on. It's great to be here, and it's great to make some connections from people we previously known earlier. So,
isn't it fun? It's kind of a small circle.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to get right into the first question here, which is actually the real only question. Is if you had to rethink, and I know you've been working on this in Highline. Student wellness in your district, whether it's student anxiety, depression, or bullying or violence, how have you approached the work?
Yeah, I would say all those are just so important, and I'd probably start off by saying that I think that as we think about student, I would actually say staff well-being also, like it has to be one of our main priorities, just like any other priorities, literacy, special education, any other thing you're trying to do, it has to be one of the main priorities that I think districts focus on. And we do that here in Highline. And I think for us, it starts off with our promise, which is to know every student by name, strength, and need so they graduate prepared for the future they choose. That's our aspirational vision, and that's what we work to strive for every day. When I came into Highline about 4 years ago, it's my fourth year now, really had a wonderful transition. Dr. Susan Enfield was a superintendent before, had been here 10 years. We had probably one of the smoothest transitions that ever had. But I took the opportunity to really spend time to think about how I was going to build upon the work that she did. So we did all these listening sessions. But the one thing that came out as really strong was this idea around a culture of belonging, that our community, our students were really talking around some of the challenges they face, whether it was bullying, name calling, micro incidences that happen. And so we have adopted a culture of belonging as one of our 4 goals. And that really just grounds us in this idea around what are we doing to ensure that every student feels welcomed, valued, and safe. And so from that work that we've done, we now have just done a number of strategies that support that, all the way from having really strong social emotional learning curriculum that we teach in all of our grades, staff that support that work to help, both in the curriculum development, lesson integration, and, professional learning. I think one great thing that we have here in Highline is that we have counselors in every one of our schools from elementary to high school, and they just serve a variety of needs, whether it's literally dealing with someone who is having some mental health, challenges that need some supports, all the way to supporting students at the secondary level for college and career, future, getting them ready for the future. So that's really important. We also have a really robust social worker team here. And that is really important because I think, the one beauty around our social workers is that, they operate from like a caseworker management style. And so they're able to really dig in and support students at a deeper level, families at a deeper level, which I think is really important. And then I really love some of the work that we're doing at the secondary level around advising. We don't have a system that's the same all the way across. We're having a lot of conversations what that looks like, but many of our schools are using advisory as a way to develop really key concepts, whether it's around a topic around multiculturalism, for example, the specific information they want to ensure every student receives, and then that's delivered in advisory. And I think that advisory model just really creates a deeper connection for students, allows staff members to know students, way beyond the academic aspect, but really what's going on with them. And then finally, I would say that one of the big investments we have also is that we just have a number of community partners here in Highline. We are just south of Seattle, and we're, really an urban school district. And, we have a number of community partners that do everything from after school programming to college and career readiness to parent education to some that actually provide direct mental health services, that we refer our students to. And so all those strategies we have in place are important and fit underneath our cultural belonging to ensure that our students, mental well-being and overall well-being is considered and just done really well.
That's brilliant, and yeah, a sense of belonging makes a huge difference. I mean, I think we've all been in those spaces where, you could just feel it. It almost comes through your skin where I'm just not welcome here, or I'm not comfortable here. And that makes a huge difference, that sense of belonging. I don't, is it too much to say it's kind of a North Star for the district?
Oh, I definitely see it is. I think it is because it really connects so much to our promise. If we really want to know our students by name, strength, and need, then we need to know just who they are far beyond the academics, because we do a lot of great work with, knowing our students from an academic perspective. But then there's other side around, what's the story around the student's family, and what's what's happening with them, from challenges they may be facing just in the community and the neighborhoods, and a really good example of that too is that, recently we had one of our schools was asking for a different way of thinking about how we report absences for high school students. It's a school that shifted to a 90-minute 4-period block, during the day, okay, which is a part of our secondary school redesign work. But what they were seeing is that as students were coming in tardy, they were missing a really good chunk of time. And so on one hand, we could do this easy technical support, create another code in our student information system, and mark a kid as being tardy. But really the adaptive and important work needs to be, what can that school do to think about how they can have a system in place so that when the student does come in tardy, there's someone who can actually talk to them and say, hey, we noticed that you're tardy every Monday. What is going on? And I think if we had a better system to support that, we would probably hear stories around, I help get my younger siblings off to school. I'm working a job. I work late on Sundays, and it's just really hard for me to get out of bed. And so, yeah, I definitely think it's a North Star. And I think there's lots of opportunities for us to improve it, because we have to just be able to know students at a deeper level to know what's happening with them and come from this place of inquiry rather than a place of judgment.
Yeah, absolutely. What's the saying that I'm searching for? It's let's get curious, not furious. Mm. And I think that, that curiosity factor is super important. And I think, for our elementary school folks, that seems to come a little easier at the elementary level, where it's more of a whole child approach. There's a little bit more care and concern around a student's sense of self, yeah, and what they're passionate about. And it seems like naturally in the system, as we move towards secondary education with middle and high school, places get bigger, there's more kids, more adults. And so I love your kind of very intentional approach around the advisory period that you spoke about, and getting to, kind of keep that family feeling alive in the secondary schools. Because what I noticed as a former high school principal is that kids are really searching for that connection. Oh, yeah. They may act like they don't care, but they really do care. And that sense of belonging is so powerful. And I think, as a comprehensive school building leader in the secondary, so either high school or middle school, the more programs that we can have that connect our kids to school, whether it's the athletes or the performing arts or the clubs, there's all kinds of different things. And I bet you've even got some really special career and technical education programs happening there in Highline, which, I wish I could come back and be a kid, but again, do you have some current technical education programs that you're pretty excited about and the community is excited about?
Oh, yeah. We're doing some really great work in that space. And we have, some good things that are happening. It's like one I would start is like one of the things we're really excited about is that one, we have what's called the Puget Sound Skills Center. So it's an actual center where we, partner with some other school districts, and we provide everything from nursing, dental programs, construction, automotive. We even have one around aviation, basically how to build an airplane, and so it's pretty unique in terms of those offerings. And then we also have those in our schools, everything from culinary programs, to some things that we're doing in the maritime industry, where students are actually getting opportunities to go out on vessels in the Sound here, which is the ocean really next to us, and actually learn how to operate boats, so that real life, real hands-on experience is something I just really believe is so important, because it helps students to begin thinking about something that they may be passionate about. Because I think it's often a challenge for us I think one of the challenges we have in education, sometimes we ask students, what do you want to be when you grow up, or when you graduate from school? Our kids are they're developing still, their brains aren't fully developed, but I think asking the question and helping students find out what they're passionate about, what they're interested in, is going to go a long ways into their future educational opportunities to then figure out what they will do later on, once they're, beyond the K through 12 experience. But we're seeing that the CT programs are just providing really great hands-on experience. One thing I'll just share is that we just rebuilt a couple of our high schools. One of them, Tai High School, just opened up as a brand new school. And they have a medical pathway that was developed in partnership with one of our local hospitals. And that all came about from a relationship that I had built with the chief operating officer. But they have a need for medical staff. We have students. And so we're partnering with them to, the first course that students are taking is Intro to Medical Careers. And then there'll be some CT classes that tie directly to that. And that's going to just give students, not only internship opportunities, but exposure, job shadowing, and really getting an idea around what are potential fields, our career that they can interest in the medical field. So really excited about that partnership that we have right now.
Yeah, connecting with your local community leaders and your business community in particular. I used to say, people, I've got 20,000 future workers sitting in my system right now. What is it that you want them to know and be able to do? And what kind of skills can we start working with them so that they're ready to make that transition? And the other thing I would say too is that I think people often underestimate, if you're not around teenagers every day, you may just not have the opportunity to experience this. But to me, there's a level of social consciousness that far exceeds what I used to see many years ago. In other words, I think that today's kids are very interested in making the world a better place and solving some of those big problems that, frankly, my generation hasn't done a great job of solving. And so, people often ask, like, are you worried about the future? And I always say, absolutely not. I'm excited about the future because I think there's such tremendous potential in our students.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. We did a really unique, at the end of last year, we highlighted 3 students that were part of what I call my superintendent student leadership team. And we basically did video stories on them, and we did billboards of them, basically, highlighting our promise. But each one of those students had some level of either global consciousness or social justice consciousness that they wanted to go out into the world. 2 of them are on their way to be lawyers because they see the inequities, from their own family, personal experience to their friends and colleagues, So yeah, I definitely think that more of our students have that interest in trying to make the world a better place. I'm actually preparing. I have my superintendent student leadership team tomorrow, one of our final meetings of this part of the year. And I'm actually going to do a whole session with them around values-based leadership. And part of that time we'll spend is helping them actually create a set of values that they hold dear to them, now in their high school experiences, because I personally believe that, values-based leadership is really important today in our world, where oftentimes what we're seeing, leaders, unfortunately, not operating from, a set of values that really advances everyone and operate just from a place of kindness. So I'm really looking forward to a session with our students, because they really take hold of that. I'm finding that the more that I work and treat our students, especially in my leadership team, as adults, they rise up to that, and that's what they want. That's how they want to be treated. So I know they're still, in the process of education, but I really try to ensure that I'm giving them content and information to, just like I would an adult, to be thinking around, future potential choices they may be making.
Yeah, what a great framework for them to be introduced to at a young age, to help really kind of guide their passion and their energy, because everything today is so positional. And, I think the idea of, exactly what you're doing is very powerful. Well, Ivan, we're going to pause right here for a quick 30-second break for a message from our producer, SchoolBeat, formerly MooZoom, which is the only SEL platform both educators and students truly love, with low-lift, Netflix-style, choose-your-own-adventure lessons featuring real kids navigating real-life challenges, daily wellness check-ins, and real-time insights into what students really feel. SchoolBeat is where every heart has a voice and every voice has a beat. All right, we were back. Highline Superintendent, Dr. Ivan Duran. Boy, what a great conversation thus far. I want to kind of switch gears. And, the life of the superintendent, decisions. Life goes by quickly, lots of things happening. What are some things that you do to fill your cup?
Oh, wow. Well, I'll probably just start with my family. I think one of the unique things about me as superintendent is that, my wife and I are both older in life parents. And so we have a 6-year-old, soon to be 7 in January, and a 5-year-old. And, my oldest actually attends one of our schools. So I have this really unique unique perspective as a superintendent, because I'm also a parent in our system, but I would just say I start with my family, my wife and I, have these 2 young boys, and that just fills my cup. I love, interacting with them, watching them grow and develop. Last year, as one of our sons was in kindergarten, watching him unlock the reading code was just brilliant. I've spent the majority of my career raising other kids, if you will. And so now having my own kids and seeing that joy, is just really beautiful. And then I just, we have a really great network of support, to help with the boys, from, grandparents that help, shuttle the kids back and forth, and that just is really, super helpful. So just really appreciative of that, because as you said, this job does require a lot of time, effort, and energy and focus. And it definitely is something that is one of those 24/7 kind of a things, so, having that network of support is important. And then, I intentionally spend every day just sitting and creating a list of what I'm grateful for in my life. I think that's just so important, in the morning to enjoying my, cup of coffee, is also just have time to sit, be with myself, and just be grounded, in the little spiritual practice that I consider, and part of that is really centered around, gratitude. And then, I work out pretty regularly and pretty conscious of my diet, in terms of what I eat, because I just think that makes a difference, and then, finally I'll share with you that I, think sometimes there's some negative perspectives or people have different opinions about it, but, I see a counselor on a regular basis for support. That's important for me, as both a person, as a individual, but as a leader, because I believe this role requires the best version of myself, and I just want to ensure that nothing from my past is getting in the way of the work that I lead or how I raise and, and support my family and my students, or my kids. So, that's just something that's been part of my regular practice for a long time. And I just find it really helpful.
I think that is beautiful. And I so appreciate you sharing that aspect of your life with the audience. I can appreciate it. I've heard it said like this: even Olympic gold medalists require constant coaching. And that's kind of the way I view it. I was fortunate as a superintendent. I had a coach/mentor. And oftentimes I felt like there was more than just job coaching and mentoring happening. It was actually therapeutic. And I love the idea of really having that counselor who you can just bounce things off of. And I don't know about for you, but for me, my brain has the ability to make things far worse than reality, especially those things that I'm anticipating or I have fear about. And sometimes that fear can be almost a paralysis where you just get so anxious and stressed out, and the thing hasn't even happened yet.
Yeah.
And so it's a great reminder. I don't know. Do you have that fear thing?
If I would say it is fear, but I think, sometimes, there may be things that I question myself around, either decision made or how maybe I handled the situation, because, I spend a lot of time, especially with my leadership team, poking and prodding, because if I see, interactions between them that may not be, what I consider, kind or respectful or aligned to our own values that we have as a team, I'll push people in that area, and then sometimes like, well, did I push too hard or not? And usually the answer is like what I hear from other people or even from the person themselves, like, no. But yeah, it definitely does. Sometimes the questioning will come up, so it's definitely real for us because we're making decisions all the time that impact people. And, you can only make that decision with the best data and information and, some intuition that you have, but, you'll never make everybody happy with the decisions you make, so.
Yeah, there is truth in that. And sometimes that's a hard lesson to live through. And I've also had the case where, I made a decision and I reflected on that decision, and I actually stood before people and changed course and said, I'm sorry. That was not, thinking back on it, that was not the best course of action. And I apologize. And as that takes a great amount of vulnerability, but I think in the end, it's actually perceived as a strength from amongst your colleagues, mm-hmm. that you can actually stand in front of people and say, I went right when I should have gone left, and I'm sorry, and we're going to make it right.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's almost like you're bringing up the aspect of leadership vulnerability, and I think as leaders, we have to be vulnerable. We have to be willing to, take ownership for things we may have done. There's many times where I may have, here's what I'm thinking right now in terms of a decision. I'll share it with my team, get feedback from them. And then there's times when, I'll adjust course based off of the feedback and thinking around what's the impact of this? How is this going to play out with, this community or with, this situation? And so I think leaders, though, that are vulnerable tend to get more feedback. And I think they tend to bring more of the thought partnership from the brilliant people that you have around you, if you're willing to take the time to listen and to them, as well as, when you may make a mistake, to own it and just say, hey, this is what I thought was the best decision at the time. And if I could redo it, I would redo it. That goes a long ways.
Yeah. And I think it contributes to a healthy organization where, people actually feel like they have a seat at the table when certain decisions are being contemplated. And I think that's powerful. I think especially amongst the teacher ranks, it seems to me like everybody's got advice for teachers, and rarely do they have a seat at the table where they can be empowered to lead the work that they're doing. And I'm probably getting too far afield here, but that was one of the things that I noticed, that, if you truly care about teachers and educators, they need to be right there designing the work moving forward. And so there's a individual and collective responsibility around this shared purpose that we're building. And I think that's just kind of one of those powerful things that reminds me of, these are signs of a good, healthy organization. And so I so appreciate your willingness to share that vulnerability, because I think that's a huge part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll just quickly add, we have a number of, we call them, teams that come out of some of our bargaining. Like one of them is our joint inclusionary team that really centers around all the work that we're doing with inclusion and things specifically related towards our services we provide and how we provide our services to our special education students. And it's made up of our teachers, administrators, central office, and, they collectively work through issues that come up and bring them forward. And, they either come to immediate decisions that we can change some practices or things that we're doing, or they could potentially lead to, future bargaining topics that are there. But that's definitely one way that we have brought in, voices, from our teachers in particular to weigh in on, especially some of these big priorities that we're doing around literacy, secondary school redesign, inclusion, and then, student supports, which is also, our systems of MTSS and how we're monitoring, tracking data for our students. So we try to bring those voices in because I think they're so critical, because they're the ones that are doing the work on, majority of time. And I think it's very easy to sit up at the superintendent level and think that, we're doing inclusionary practices, everything's going great. But teachers at the classroom level who are just starting some of the work are really feeling the experiences of students who may have been isolated, in a self-contained classroom, who are now being integrated into regular ed. I mean, it's a challenging process and it's hard work. And we need to hear from people's experiences so that we can, think about how we can do better training or adjust staffing, or think about how we can do it better the next time we roll it out in another school. So that's an important piece that I think we do pretty well here, and obviously opportunities for us to even do that better.
No, I think, and I just kind of end with this. We often, and in fact, we started the conversation with the power of a sense of belonging for our students. And I think it's equally as important for the adults in the system to have that sense of belonging and sense of connectedness to, it's great to work for a mission-driven organization.
Yep.
And when people can get connected to that mission because it's a shared ideal, and you certainly have that in Highline. So congratulations. Yep. Kudos. What a pleasure to have you on the show today. That'll do it for this episode of the Superintendent Hot Seat. It's been an honor to have our guest on the show, Dr. Ivan Duran from Highline Schools.
Well, thank you for the opportunity. It's been a great conversation. Look forward to connecting more down the road.
Sounds great. Thanks so much.